There is an aspect of TTRPGs that I think gets missed a lot, and it's too bad because it can be a very fun aspect of the game, and that's crafting. With the release of the 2024 Player's Handbook and other new systems such as Tales of the Valiant, downtime is becoming a focus, or at least it should be. Of course, crafting is just one part of downtime, but I think it's a part many people want to experience more. But part of crafting is the gathering of the materials you need to create that suit of armor or that sword or to enchant a weapon. Well, today I want to talk to you about a new book from Nord Games that is going to help with this very topic. So let's get into it. Hello, everybody. I'm Joe, and this is the GM Toolbox, your go to place to get all the tools you need to enhance your TTRPG games. Before we get started today, if you like the content I'm bringing you, please take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It will help me out to grow and bring you more great content. A while back, I did a video on crafting, and we reviewed Nord Games' book, The Ultimate Guide to Alchemy, Crafting, and Enchanting. This book is amazing and it sees plenty of use at my table. I highly suggest checking out that video and this book. But in order to craft great items, we have to first gather the materials. So Nord now has the second part of this book collection. It's called The Ultimate Guide to Foraging, Harvesting, and Natural Discovery. Now, I don't have a physical copy to show you today, but Nord was kind enough to send me a PDF to share with you. This book was the perfect sequel to the crafting book, and it provides all the materials we need and how to get them when we want to craft new items. Let's take a look and see what this book offers. There are 5 parts to this book. The first 2 parts are foraging and harvesting. This covers all the items like ore and herbs that we may forage, as well as the things we can harvest from beasts we defeat. These act as components in the recipes, both from the first book and the new recipes in this book. The next part is natural discovery. This covers downtime activities we may do and what outcomes can come from them. This may include foraging for materials or hunting for beasts for their rare components, but it also includes other interesting activities. Next, we have some new recipes we can learn for alchemy, crafting, and enchanting, which grows our recipe list from the first book. Then finally, we have a magic item compendium with all the new items we learned to craft in this book. Let's take a quick look at each of these and see how they can be used. Starting with foraging, we can see right away that the layout and design of this book is really nice. Like its predecessor, we see tables for the different ingredients we may forage. The book gives us an example ingredient and then breaks down what everything means in each column using that example. We will see, for instance, that shimmering ore can be smelted or it can be ground into a powder, which then carries a unique property. In this case, the unique property reduces crafting time by 25%. Next, we see the grade of the material. In this case, it's high. The grade also affects crafting time for some specific items or categories of item. We then see the foraging DC to gather this material. For shimmering ore, that's a nature check with a DC of 20. A failed check would mean that you were unable to forage a sufficient amount to be used, or that it would be too poor a quality to be used. There is also an option to attempt to gather triple the amount by increasing the DC by 2 and then tripling the amount of time needed to gather. As we can see in this table, the time to gather is normally 3 hours, but if we wanted to triple the amount we gathered, it would take 9 hours of work and the DC would go up to 22. The final 2 columns tell us where we may find the type of ingredients. In this case, we're looking in temperate climates, and then we would have to check in crevices, pits, and spires. We also have a section in this chapter on selling the ingredients if you want. You don't have to use them to craft. Maybe you just want to take them to the market and sell them. So this table here gives us that option. After all the description on how foraging works, they give us tables broken up by environments such as aquatic or coastal or desert or forest, mountains, and so on. This is a very useful way to break it up because you're going to want to be able to flip to the type of environment your players are currently in to see what they may find. Within these environments, they then break up the tables by material types such as flowers, herbs, and other, plants, gemstones, metals, rocks, fungi, etc. This all makes this book very easy to use. Next up is the harvesting section, which I think they did a really nice job on. This can be tricky because you can't list every monster out there. It's impossible. So how do you approach creating harvesting tables for these creatures? Well, let's take a look. They did 2 things here. First, there are certain creatures they did cover, such as dragons, which we can see one listed as our example with the adult black dragon. But they did cover many creatures from each creature type that may have special properties that would produce good ingredients to harvest. For instance, they have different giants listed, as well as elementals and undead and monstrosities and a whole bunch more. But they also covered a more general spectrum. They have a section on creature characteristics that any creature that has these characteristics could be harvested for special ingredients. This is things like a creature that has dark vision or blind sight, or maybe a creature with an immunity or resistance to a specific damage type. Maybe a creature with a special speed like climbing or swimming speed. They even have a section for creatures with special traits such as pack tactics or spell casting. All of these characteristics will produce something special that can be harvested. This is such a great design and allows us to cover almost any creature. They even did a section for how to harvest bone and meat and how to butcher and preserve that meat. It's all very useful and easy. As far as tables go, we see many of the same columns we did with the foraging section, but we see two new ones here: drawback damage and rune damage. Drawback damage shows certain damage types that if the creature took those damage types when you slayed it, it would increase the DC to harvest those materials. The DC would increase by 5 per damage type it took that is listed in this column. The rune damage means that if a creature took that damage type listed in this column, that ingredient would be ruined and not harvestable at all. Again, all this makes for a very easy to use system that, once you know and understand it, can be quickly done at the table. My suggestion for a GM would be that if you know what kinds of creatures they're going to be facing, maybe have a harvesting table for that creature ready so you can quickly answer any questions at the table and not have to pause too much. The next section is natural discovery, and this section basically gives you downtime activities that you can do with your toolkits as well as some other stuff. This is going to include things like foraging or hunting or mining, but it also may include things like altruism, where you may spend time and money to help others in charity. However, this will provide mechanical in-game benefits down the road, such as advantage on a charisma persuasion check when dealing with the people impacted by your selfless actions. You can also spend time crafting for your association or guild. Associations are fleshed out in the crafting book, and I talked about them in my other videos. So again, check that out if you haven't seen it yet, but this again shows how these books build on each other, which I really love. Whatever you choose for these downtime activities, they have rewarding outcomes, but they also have complications. There are tables for all this in this section. When it comes to downtime, I generally work at that when my players are back in town and in safety, I'll have some number of weeks that pass between our sessions. I'll ask them what they did in that downtime, and we will make some rolls and consult the tables in these books to see what the outcomes are. I know the 2024 Player's Handbook gave us very little in the way of downtime and crafting, so these books help a ton here. Tales of the Valiant from Cobalt Press, which is the system I'm using more now, has some great downtime rules built in already, and these books actually fit right into that system very well. One thing I do want to say is that although these books are geared for 5e systems, they're also fairly system neutral, and with the exception of the rolls you have to make to see if things work, they can be used in any fantasy system. The next section is just filled with recipes of items you can craft. This directly builds on the previous book. I have actually created little recipe books as handouts for my players that I give them to show what they know and what they can make and what the ingredients are. As they improve in their skills in crafting and move up, I add more stuff to their books. So these recipes will either be directly added or they'll act as recipes they can maybe learn in different places independently. As far as what all these new items actually are and what they do, well, that's in the next section. We have an entire compendium for all the items from this book. Nord even has some box sets of tarot-sized cards you can get with these items. So Nord really has gone all out here. I have to say, Nord has always been one of my favorite publishers for these types of systems that help your game. I love things like adventurers and new spells and player options and all of that, but no one does these game enhancement systems better than Nord. And I mean no one. One of my favorite books in my collection is still Spectacular Settlements. It's a complete engine for making fantasy towns and cities. If you haven't seen my video on that, go check it out because it really is amazing. I have to say, I'm just so excited about this foraging and harvesting book and getting it added to my game. I'll definitely need to get a physical copy soon along with the magic item compendium cards. Nord just never ever disappoints me. So what do you guys think? Do you like gathering and crafting in your games? Do you already have a way to implement it that works well? Or does this book seem like something that would actually get some use at your table? Let me know in the comments. You can find links in the description below to where you can pick up this book and other books from Nord Games. Well, that's all we got for today, folks. Thank you for coming on this journey with me, and I'll see you next time.